And I'm going to let you know as soon as the YouTube live goes on, and then you can start, Bidhi. Okay, we're live. Go ahead, Bidhi, you can start.
Okay. Greetings and welcome to Bridging Borders, a Southasian Vision for COP30, organized by the Southasia Peace Action Network, also known as Sapan. This program is part of Sapan's ongoing series called Imagine Neighbours in Peace, which started when the organization was launched in March 2021. Namaste, I'm Bidhi Adhikari, an economics student and development practitioner from Nepal. I have been volunteering with Sapan since 2024, and I'm delighted to be your host for today's program. As we all know, South Asia is deeply connected through monsoon, ecosystem, rivers, and the air we breathe. As the world prepares for COP30 in Belém, Brazil, we come together to reflect, to share, and to demand climate action that is fair, just, and real. Today, we are delighted to be joined by activists and thinkers from across the region and the diaspora. Before we move forward, here are some brief reminders for you. Please mute your microphone when you're not speaking. Please introduce yourself in the chat. Use the chat for questions or comments, but keep it on topic and respectful. Be patient with any technical difficulties. And as always, we encourage suggestions and feedback from everyone. Moving on, I want to share about Sapan's 3-point founding charter. The charter calls on the governments and peoples of South Asian nations to 1. Institute soft borders to allow freedom of trade and travel to each other's countries. 2. Ensure human rights and dignity for all citizens, including religious and ethnic minorities. 3. Cooperate in all areas, particularly related to public health, culture and legal reform, education, environment, climate change, etc. You can also find it in several languages online. And this charter has been endorsed by nearly 130 organizations. And yes, I'm sorry for the interruption. This charter has been endorsed by nearly 130 organizations and more than 700 individuals in the region and diaspora. And one of the recent organizations to endorse it is also Hatimalu Collective from Nepal. We invite everyone to visit the website www.southasiapeace.com and endorse the charter if you haven't already. Now, we traditionally begin our event by honoring those whose legacy we take forward. May we have a moment of silence to honor them and others we have lost along the way. Thank you, everyone. We now come to our panel discussion, which is moderated by senior journalist Afia Salam in Karachi, Pakistan. Afia is a senior Pakistani journalist and a member of the IUCN Commission on Environmental, Economic, and Social Policy. She was also on the Prime Minister's advisory body, Pakistan Climate Change Council, and the National Coordinating Body for Marine Protected Areas. She is also a founder member of Sapan and serves on the Sapan News Advisory Council. She joins us today from Karachi. Welcome, Afia. The floor is completely yours.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Vidhi, for the introduction and the context that you have set for the seminar. So hello and welcome, everyone. And, for today's end of the month webinar, which this month is a curtain raiser to the COP30, titled Imagine Neighbours in Peace, Bridging Borders, a South Asian version for COP30. It is very important to talk about peace, especially in times of war, strife, upheaval, and conflict, when the agenda of climate change somehow gets to be on the back burner. But COP is at a time when this subject is then taken up, by all the people who work towards this and work towards the shared problems coming up with a solution. And because climate change knows no borders and South Asia is a very vulnerable region, I'm very honored and privileged to have a panel truly representative of South Asia. I have with me Sant Kalyar Nanda from Sri Lanka. He is a communication strategist and climate communication advocate from Sri Lanka. And we would like to hear a little bit more about the organization with which he is trying to do the communication of this very important subject when we come to him. He's a co-founder of the Climate Change Communication Hub and CEO of the Third Shift Media. Then from Nepal, we have Manita Murmu, who is a youth climate justice activist working in the grassroots of Jhapa district with IMCS Nepal under its Datu SI Ecological Commission. She belongs to the indigenous Santhali community and is currently pursuing her bachelor's in education. She is a single-use polybag-free community. She has been working to create a single-use polybag-free community in Jhapa as a grassroots youth leader through the project Chola Rai, a gender transformative climate justice action program, which gives us so much hope with the youngsters, spearheading these kind of movements. I'm also very happy to introduce Barish Chowdhury, who is a campaigns and policy coordinator for Bangladesh Environmental Lawyers Association. He is also the regional coordinator for Friends of the Earth Asia Pacific. Then we have Manshi Asher from India. She works on climate justice and is based in the northwest Indian mountain state of Himachal Pradesh. She is the co-founder of Himdhara Collective and member of People for Himalaya, a campaign for climate justice in the region involving various progressive organizations and people. Representing the Pakistan here is Sher Abbas, who is a British Pakistani A-level student interested in STEM, environmental preservation, physical fitness, and societal well-being. He has been a youth speaker at a previous Sapan event, What Peace Means to Young South Asians, when he spoke in May 2025. Thank you very much, all of you, for taking time out on the weekend. I really appreciate that because everybody has weekend plans. And, to come and take part in this discussion. So how we will take this forward is we will have a first round in which, we'll have the question when all of you will be able to give your country-specific response of how we would like to take this forward. We will have this question answer for about 50 minutes. And after a couple of question rounds, we will have a wrap by the panelists. I would request all the audience on all platforms, YouTube, Facebook, X, as well as Zoom link, to post the questions in the chat, indicating also which panelists they would like to answer their question. Our colleagues managing those pages will direct them to me, and if time allows, we will definitely attempt to answer a few of them. So thank you once again for joining us, and I would like to open the discussion with the question that almost all our countries are recognized as vulnerable to the impacts of climate change. In view of other externalities like, the political, economic realities that we are all grappling with in South Asia, across, and the perception generally, that those things are more pressing, more important. What is the perception across all these sectors and segments of society in your specific countries? So is there this threat perception about the situation they are in vis-a-vis climate change? Or is it still like a niche topic? Is everybody discussing it now across segments? Or is it a niche topic? So I will go in the order that everybody is sitting in front of me on the screen. So something, if you can tell us, how does this topic resonate with the Sri Lankans? how important do you think it is for them to talk about it and, you know, to relate their problems and also come up with some solutions? Is there a lot of talk about it?
Yeah, thank you, Afia. And first of all, thank you everyone for having us to represent this important discussion. So it's a rainy Colombo today. Good evening from very wet and rainy Colombo. From whichever the part you are joining, good morning, and Aiboan from Colombo. So the question you ask, Afia, is climate change and response to the climate change, the pulse of the people. So to start off with, I'll tell you, like, we are an island nation. So so being an island, we have that advantage of the unique biodiversity and all these things, but at the same time, we are very vulnerable to the effects of climate change as well, sea level rising to all these things. I don't have to tell you. To picking up on the most recent issue and the topic to answer your question is, I think the how people felt this strongly was due to the monsoon. The monsoons were really different, getting really different year on year, because in Sri Lanka, the most of the livelihood is depending on agriculture, especially in the rural sector. Paddy farming is one of the main farming activities. In Sri Lanka, paddy farming is mainly happening through rain-fed agriculture. So when the monsoons are getting disturbed, it's really affecting the livelihood and the food security and everything. It goes on and on. So basically, directly to answer your question as a topic, yes, it's not the topic in the town, but recently it has gained a certain the attention due to this adverse weather they have faced, they have started to feel, and they have started to face. So that topic is being a little topical, but not as how it should be. To answer your question, that's I would like to start it in that manner. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, this is the same question that I would now like to pose to my other panelists. Would you like to go next? Okay, I can't have the whole my panelists are not there. Okay, Manita. So, would you like to tell us how this topic resonates in the community that you are working in? How alarmed are they, and how engaged are they in looking for solutions? Manita, you're on mute. Could you unmute your mic, please?
Thank you, Afia,
Thanks.
and hello and namaste, everyone. It's an honor to be part of this conversation that imagines South Asia not as borders, but as neighbors in peace and collective actions. I am Manita Murmu, an indigenous Santhali youth from Japa, Nepal. Santhali is a community that transcends borders and thrives in Nepal, India, and some part of Bangladesh as well. Just like this platform connecting us beyond borders. So when I when I think about climate justice as a Santhali youth, I don't think of it as policies, frameworks, negotiation terms, or some figures on national as well as international database. To me, it is Sorhai festival or harvest festival, a festival of abundance and singing song of gratitude to Earth, Mother Earth, for feeding us. Our ancestor wisdom speaks loudly about reciprocity for the earth's care and passes the message down generations after generations as songs and festivals. Yet today, the earth feeding us is cracking easily under the sun because of prolonged drought, late monsoon, or it gets drowned by flood or landslides because of untimely rain. Like the recent heavy rain in Nepal and India, claiming lives As well, this is a shared experience of climate change for all of us. In our region, whether it, it be Nepal, floodplains of India, or coasts of Sri Lanka, farmers and we indigenous people living in close proximity to nature, all we experience our abundance being threatened. Our soar high gratitude songs are now changing to song of resilience. We indigenous people carry memories and transfer as international heritage, in generational heritage. Living in countries like ours, where rivers, land, and mountains are our kins together with our neighbors, have the role of bridge the world, speaking language of carbon, trading, finance, and fancy terms of policy. We common people don't even know the meaning of. As reciprocity to Mother Earth, nurturing me and my friends in IMCS Nepal are training women of our communities to make usable bags from textile industry waste and cooperating with local Jesuit run schools to make paper bags in an effort of reducing single use plastic bags in markets of our area. When we do it, we are doing ourselves the favor of making a green world, hailing our exploitative relationship with earth because earth give enough for us, but there is never enough for our greed. At COP30, we are making space that fosters fraternity for climate justice beyond borders. We imagine borders porous to learning, empathy, and solidarity, and acknowledgement for our ancestor wisdoms. Because at the end of the day, the earth doesn't recognize our borders, but only the reci- reciprocity care for it, selfless nurturing. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for putting it out so comprehensively. And this is how I mean, your community, because it straddles borders, and you are there in 2, 3 different areas. You are speaking about a specific ecosystem, which is something so important to understand, that the lines that we draw across countries, the climate doesn't respect them. So it's very important to have a holistic view, a transboundary view. So thank you for giving that update to us. So share
Afia, we lost you, I think. Would you mind repeating? We lost you for a minute. Dobara bolo. Your video has gone off.
would you
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're okay
see
now.
me and hear me?
Yeah, now we can. Go ahead, please.
Okay. All right. So I mean, I was thanking for a very comprehensive presentation of how we need to take a look at very holistically, and they are a community which are across borders, and they look at it as an ecosystem. So that is the approach that can probably take us forward, and it is the youth that I see a lot of it in, that they don't really think only of their region, and they think of the same kind of problems, and they look for solutions across borders. So that's a very encouraging sign. Thank you very much, Manita. Share, now you also, especially if I'm saying, you are representing the youth, and your generation I've seen is very connected to other people from your age group, and are also connected without caring about who is from which country, which border, across which border. So what is your take, and how do you see the youth in Pakistan? Do you think they are, as a fraternity, more engaged now than you have seen our generation to be, and do you think that is going to take us forward? And what can youth representatives do, to grow that tribe?
That's a very interesting question. I would say that, yes, our generation seems to be perhaps the most connected generation the world has ever known up until this point, primarily due to the internet, to where essentially a person, which in fact is the thing enabling even this conversation and this panel here to meet together and speak. So we probably have the most globalized generation we're probably the most globalized generation the world has ever known. And also many people, because of the amount of mobility we have nowadays, many people have meet from countries that are even usually have animosity amongst each other. For example, I'm from the UK, I'm a British Pakistani. I have met many Indians in the UK who I've even become friends with at some point, and I even went to school with many people who are British Indians. Although many of them had given up their Indian nationality in exchange for British citizenship, they were still Indian and still had Indian roots and returned to India regularly. So we are a very connected generation, and we are united on a lot of issues. Because of the internet, again, we recognize a lot of the same things and a lot of the same themes and a lot of the same concepts, particularly the environment, which is across Generation Z entirely, is a very pressing issue, because at the end of the day, we know we're the ones who are going to have to deal with it. And generally speaking, in Pakistan, I have noticed over here, people don't really have to you don't have to convince people in Pakistan that climate change is a real threat, because we've experienced it. In 2022, we had massive floods causing more than $30 billion of damages to us. Just recently, we've had another set of floods during the summertime, which caused even more damages. Once again in the billions, but not as much as in 2022. Not only that, but despite being producing less than 1% of global greenhouse gases, we are ranked consistently among the top 10 countries most vulnerable to climate change. So for us, we do understand climate change and we are worried about climate change on quite a high level, because at the end of the day, it will be irreversible if we do not act swiftly regarding this matter. Also, I have noticed that, generally speaking, overall, Pakistanis tend to have very low levels of animosity towards anyone in general. Like, we are generally a hospitable and peaceful people. And if you go around asking people in Islamabad, for example, if I went on the streets asking people, what do you think of India? What do you think of Afghanistan? What do you think of Bangladesh? You are very unlikely to find polarizing negative opinions. Perhaps during the previous escalations and conflicts, you might find some negative opinions, or there's been an increase since then. But usually, Pakistanis have very low animosity towards people of other nationalities. And as a result, we do have a desire to connect with others as well. And so I've noticed very little animosity and a lot of need for cooperation in Pakistan.
Thank
Generally
you.
speaking,
Thank you very much, Jane. And that is something that, that is so refreshing coming from the newer generation, because you are not carrying the baggage of history with you. And that is, I think, what is needed. And I would like to first finish this round of questions from from my colleagues from the other countries, and then we will come to it, because you're leading to exactly where my next question is going to be. So that is why I'll stop you right here for now. But this is something, that we need to actually take care of, and how we are going to go. So, Manchi, this is something that we have been hearing about, but how do you feel that this is being implemented on ground? And is there a greater understanding of what this connectivity can mean to this region? And are people willing to identify themselves as South Asians on global forums? You're on mute. Could you unmute your mic, please? Thank you. Thank you. Please go ahead now. Oh no, it's gone back to on mute.
Is it, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Please go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm speaking today from India, but I'm here on this platform as a South Asian.
and more importantly, rooted in the Himalaya. And I want to actually start by, expressing deep solidarity with all those who are grieving the loss of loved ones in devastating disasters that have taken place across the mountains, across the Himalayan region, from where I am, in Himachal Pradesh to Uttarakhand to Jammu, and even Darjeeling. We too have had a very devastating monsoon. And of course, our neighbors in Nepal and Pakistan have witnessed floods and landslides that have torn apart families, swallowed homes, erased entire villages, literally. So, and my heart really goes out to the women, the children, elders, those who are living with the trauma of displacement, and who have often been forced to flee because of the floods with great difficulty, and now suffering in the fear that there's a possibility of recurrence of events like this, which has become very common in this region. So I want to start with that. I think that the question about, there are two questions. One is, what are the common people thinking about climate change, and how do, I mean, the question of identity, and are we able to look beyond borders and our national identities to identify some larger issues. I think that there are all kinds of people in every region and society, and there are also times when certain narratives kind of dominate. And I think underneath all that, when something like these kind of devastating disasters occur, um, I think that people are able to, because they are really, it's a lived experience of the people. And if you look at the kind of struggles that are happening across the country, but also in the Himalayan region around issues of environment, especially, I mean, it is directly connected with protecting the landscape, protecting the livelihoods, and especially in the mountains. There is a tendency, more actually in the media, and in the larger kind of public narrative, to see these regions only like as strategic frontiers or as aesthetic abodes. But importantly, I think we need to if we look at it from inside, from the people who are living here, I think they see these ecological systems that that we have coexisted with, weaving the cultural identity and memory into the concern for the present, and also for possibilities of a future where well-being is the most important thing and peace is the most important thing. And yeah, our systems of disaster management, or other kind of climate responses, they focus on more on the fatalities that happen during the disaster, or the sensational rescue moments, and then they have kind of moved out of the headline. Sometimes they are in the headlines seasonally, but the real struggles of rebuilding homes, recovering lands, reconstructing livelihoods, uh, all these are very real, experienced by the people. And the lack of resources to kind of get out of the cycle of disaster, or to bounce back from it. And survivors are mostly like getting trapped in this expectation and neglect, and living, which live long after cameras have moved out of the place and the issue is not there. And we all know about the Hindu Kush Himalayan region, and why it is climatically, it is a region which is warming faster than the global average. We are seeing very rapid glacial melts and retreating snow, and these are, I mean, at least in the case of India, you have three major river basins, Indus, Ganga, and Brahmaputra, which are an important source of food and water security for the entire region. And also, these are transboundary rivers. So either we are an upper riparian or a lower riparian. So there is really a need for, kind of, and the relationship with land is also getting fractured as these glaciers melt. So how is it that we're going to rebuild this? And how is it that we're going to, how are we going to imagine our future? This is a real threat. There's one more thing that I want to talk about, is this, question of development. And I think that is what a lot of the people are now talking about, that what are these developmental models that are just pushing hyper consumerism, extractivism, this exploitative idea of progress, where everyone should be the same, but it's not leading to any kind of, it's so unequal, it's not equitable at all. So I think that in the Himalayan region, at least, there's a questioning of, mega highways, large-scale commercial tourism, even hydropower dams, which are being branded as green energy, because they are, stopping the flow of the rivers, but also causing geological instability, and they're not viable in a time where the rivers are drying up. So these are all really issues that are already in conversation. And I think the hope, I'll just end here with this last line, that the hope is that we also tend to look at people as victims and vulnerable victims. Yes, there's also and then on the other extreme end is this language of blame. People have become selfish, people have become greedy, but I think we need to look at the structural and the systemic causes of the psychosocial makeup that we are seeing in society right now. And I think that the hope is that, we see people, they are the frontline rescuers. They are running cooperative community relief camps after disasters. People are demanding better governance. I mean, more constitutional autonomy. There's demand for policy shift, demand for accountability post disaster. So I think that there's a hope, that disasters sometimes in history have really shifted the course of society. So I think that there is that critical consciousness that can be built at this time, and we could see this as an opportunity.
Thank you very much, Manchi, because this is the richness and the opportunity of forums like Sapan. Because if I had not introduced you as somebody from India, you would be saying the same things that the Pakistanis are saying. Because HKKH, all the things you are saying is happening right across the border. Like I said, borders are drawn by humans, but the nature doesn't, honor any such divisions. And the glacial retreat is a real thing. The drying of rivers is there. The those rooted in the past are looking at those development schemes which are no longer tenable or viable. So you are talking the same language, and this is what I find so important for for a forum like Sapan, that we understand what is happening in an ecological way. So it's very good to know that people now are talking about it and questioning it, because post disaster, you're so right that when the cameras move away, the conversation dies down, and that is what forums like ours should not allow to happen. And I would like to now come to my second question, which is very related to all of this. And I will go, I hope my panelists will just pick up the same sequence. As in
Barish?
view of so many. Sorry, you said something, Veena?
Yeah, I was saying Barish, you have not come to Barish yet, I think.
Yeah. So I'm going to come to Barish, and then it will be the same sequence of I think that where she has said and what Sher and Manita had said. So he is now somebody who knows the law, who knows environmental law, and what he has heard from the other colleagues in the panel is something that's the street talk, that's the sentiment on the street. So, do these two things marry at some point, Barish? In Bangladesh, what is the sentiment on the street, and how is it being translated into law? And is there a leaf out of Bangladesh's book that the rest of us can take,
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thanks for the question, in which in fact I think is actually two different questions, and I'll try to answer both. The first question about where people are in terms of thinking about climate and things. I think some of the others have also mentioned climate change and the crisis around climate change, the poly crisis, is very inherent, and it's very in connected within what people are talking about, even if they are not talking about it in those terms. The example I always give, a couple of years ago, just while I was going to work and I was on a rickshaw, it was a very bright sunny day, and the guy who was pulling the rickshaw, just out of the blue, said to me, it's supposed to rain. And I looked at him and I looked at the sky and I said, what do you mean there's not a single cloud in the sky? And he said, well, I don't do this all year. I do this during the off season. And usually I'm a farmer, and it's supposed to rain at this time, but it's not raining. And that really got me thinking, that this man felt the disturbance, if you will, even if he's not being able to express it in the jargon of climate change. He knew that there was something happening, where he's noticed weather patterns changing over the years, where he's noticed how the crops, the weather cycle has changed, when the rains come, etc. And there was something very inherent about that. And I think that's one of the things where what I really appreciate about talking to people about climate change in this country is that it is very inherent. There's no climate denialism, like there is in the West, where people, out of fear or out of whatever, reject the notion that this is happening. Here, people may not understand it, they may not have the education to talk about it in those terms, but they know inherently that this is real, and they understand the devastating impacts that it can have and is already having. One of a great quote I heard was that in Bangladesh you can taste climate change and it tastes like salt, because in the southern parts of the country, salinity intrusion has become so so ingrained, so entrenched, that it's having devastating health impacts, and those people may not understand it. The other way that I think it is completely inextricable from what we were talking about in terms of politics and economics is that the impact, the geopolitical and the geoeconomic impacts of climate change are also being felt very much so. Especially in Bangladesh, I would say the fossil fuel infrastructure that we have built up over the years, and this is the model of development that has been followed, the carbon intensive model of development, is crashing down around us and is leading to all sorts of problems, such as with sovereign debt. We're having to pay for fuel that we import, and we can't actually pay all of that money. Bangladesh right now has one of the highest amounts of climate debt, climate-induced debt, if you will, where each person in Bangladesh owes $80 in climate debt. This is one of the highest in the world. This is a country where most people do not make $80 in a month, right? And so I think it is very much, at the forefront of what people are thinking about, even if they're not thinking about it in those terms. The second question about the sort of connectedness, and I mean, it's very nice to hear what the other speakers were saying. I'm going to take a little bit of a different approach when we talk about this connectedness. Sure. The simple fact is that South Asia is the least integrated region in the world, right? And that's why platforms like this are so valuable, because where our governments fail to connect and where our governments fail to integrate and talk to each other as South Asia, people are having to step in and people are having to fill that gap, right? Because there is obviously an innate demand for that. There is an innate connection that everyone has described, historical, cultural, identity, memory, etc. But when it comes to then taking coordinated actions, when it comes to making coordinated policy, we have a massive gap. SARC has not met in more than a decade and is very unlikely to meet anytime in the future as well. But without that, we don't have an umbrella where South Asia can come together and discuss these problems deeply and think of actions together, right? And therefore, we have these people-to-people exchanges, which are, of course, very important. But this wall is something that I personally, I'm not super hopeful about it, and it makes it very hard for me to feel hopeful about the way we're talking about it, right? And it makes me it makes it much more difficult when you go to a space like the climate summit for us to coordinate together, even though we face the same problems and have the same issues.
Thank you. So, so this was something that I was going to say towards the end, but I'll interject over here that you're right. We are we are one of the least connected. We've had other regions. Look at EU. They were the people who killed 1 million people from each other's countries, etc. And it's one unit now. Even after Brexit, the rest of Europe is there as a bloc. You have the BRAC, you have BRICS, you have so many other blocs which are serving their own interests and helping the people. And this is why my next question, and I will go back to Asant. And in the view of so many common problems, which this entire region, which everybody has articulated, that if you take away the boundaries, our issues are the same. Yes, you're an island nation, Sri Lanka, but you also suffer from the threat of sea level rise, which all three of our countries do, other countries do, only Nepal doesn't because it's landlocked. So, do you hold out a hope for collaboration in knowledge sharing, in technology transfer in this southern bloc, or is this a conversation that is happening only in organizations like Sapan? We do have some other forums as well, but they, like Sapan, are just forums. So, why I'm saying this is that at the COP27, we did see a coming together. We did see a solidarity of demand for loss and damage. And we had the Indian, Pakistanis, and Bangladeshis sitting together, and not just at these, what we like to say, track two, but at the negotiating table, putting up a united front. And they were finally, after over 30 years, now remember, it is 30 years to COP now. In COP27, it was 27 years, but the late Mr. Salimul Haq Siddiq Sahab had actually started the conversation 30 years ago, pre-COP. And in COP27, it made it into the text. Now, 3 years down the road, we are still nowhere near seeing any kind of a fund. But the resonance now, and it has started from India, that fill the fund. Now, that is a rallying cry. Do you think that as a group, we can move forward beyond and break the ceiling of track two, and actually you force our countries, the delegates, to again show a united front and get a benefit for all of us? Because it's like you said, it's a shared problem, and this entire the transboundary rivers that Manchi talked about feed over 1 billion people. So that one element should bring those countries together uh, for self-preservation. If that's not a very nice word, that sounds very selfish. But if we don't go selfish over this self-preservation, then we are not really looking at any of the problems in a shared way. So Asanta, how about you? Because yours is slightly different. So I'll let you go first, because you're an island nation, but problems are still shared, quite a few of them.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So actually, you asked this question at the right time because Barish set the real context, which I wanted to talk about also. So as he rightly mentioned, I mean, geographically we were connected, yes, but we are one of the most disintegrated the part of the world, I would say. So in one word, if I am to articulate, the way forward should be actually its integration. So integrated efforts are lacking, I would say. I mean, we are a region which has a lot of commonalities, like the cultures. So people are not very different, like the share. I mean, the religion to things like that. We share a lot of commonalities, food to everything. But the amount of disintegration in these kind of topics, it's really unbelievable, as he said. So basically, I mean, the issue we are facing is nothing like we can't say it's not our problem. So climate is not a crisis like that. It affects everyone. We can't, I mean, hide in a silo and say that it's not my problem, it's not my country's problem or anything like that. So in terms of integration, I would say recently, I'll come to this. I have seen this quote by the UN Secretary General recently. He has said that as the climate crisis increases, so as the solutions to help communities to adapt. So the takeout is yes, there is a positive sign. I mean, yes, crisis is increasing, but the research is happening, the models are inventing, scientists are doing their job. But sometimes this the fact that the science and the policies are getting disseminated to people, and the people who are actively doing it on the ground is a question. So I just wanted to put this narrative. So my wife is a soil scientist. So can Afia, you imagine like a soil scientist in a newsroom sharing her research? This is how the farming should be done, climate sensitive farming. This is how the things that we have invented. So we haven't seen these kind of pictures in media and the newspapers, right? So it's really difficult to imagine that kind of a it's very difficult to picture that kind of a collaboration between these two parties. So I would say integration in terms of not as countries, as disciplines like scientists to communicators like us, like it has to be totally disintegrated with the disciplines as countries, not only policy and the legal and political level. So if I'm to sum up, I just wrote this down because I need to say that in that manner. So I think so the organization I represent is Climate Change Communication Hub. So our effort is to bridge these gaps. So we are working with policymakers, to scientists, and the media people, journalists, and everyone. So we are trying to being a center point of this whole action plan. So we are working with policy experts in Sri Lanka. So they are quite confident that at policy level, everything is laid off. Yes, it's true, they accept. But it's translating to action. There is a question. So that is where the gap is. So to end my the answer, I would like to say this: like collaboration should begin with connection. I mean, we believe climate finance is important in this whole thing. We believe that research is important in this whole the network of things. As much as those things are important, I think the collaboration, dialogue, and communication is also playing a vital role, and that's where this integration we all are talking about is coming into play through this dialogue and communication. So that's what I want to summarize to end the answer to your
Thank
question,
you.
Afia.
Thank you, because the role of the communicator is so important, because you're bridging, and you're connecting so many dots by, just as Barish said, that they know the lived experiences of climate change, even if they do not know how to articulate, or rather don't even know the jargon. Because somehow those who are actually into this fraternity, they are more rooted in the jargon and not really paying attention to what the person who's experiencing. So I think communicators actually bring in this insight. And I would like to bring Manita over here. Manita, in your community, how are you seeing this kind of collaboration? Because your community, as you mentioned, is not just in one country. You are in 4 countries actually. So do those people realize, and do they share knowledge? Do they share problems? Do they share solutions?
So, no matter what divides us, the border or opinions, we are nurtured by the same rivers. We have no other option but to act on the fraternity. We all pitch about the come together to service as humanity. not as Nepali, Bangladeshi, Indian, or Pakistani. It is our responsibility to recognize common ground of climate change and work together. We should never forget our identity as women first. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I wish, that was a common thread running across not just this region, but everywhere across humanity, because that is what we need to remember, that there is only one world. And we must also remember, I know you mentioned, Asanta, about the UN Secretary General. But there is another, warning that has been issued is that the Earth has crossed another tipping point as far as climate change is concerned, which is something very alarming, which the scientist community has already issued that warning that now needs to seep, to all the other levels of decision makers who need to sit up and take notice and act accordingly. So thank you very much, and share. What about you? What do you think? Can we break that ceiling of just being tracked to, and do you see the younger generation coming together? And the activism has at many times, and even in the case of loss and damage, we saw a lot of activism around loss and damage, the conversation. So now, since we hear this rallying cry from India about fill the fund, uh, do we, we are people here from the entire region. Can we make that rallying cry a common rallying cry? Can we push through activism, through the youngsters demanding action rather than just talk?
I believe so, and I believe that if we're going to make any progress, we're going to have to. It's not really an option as much as it is a necessity. At the end of the day, if we do not cooperate, all of us will suffer. We are crossing many thresholds, and thresholds are being crossed globally. In 2015, scientists warned that Iceland may be able to host mosquitoes if climate change continued at its current rate. In 2025, recently, mosquitoes have been spotted in Iceland, for example. This is a global threat, but generally speaking, South Asia as a region is not capable of solving this threat on its own, because we do not emit the majority of emissions. We are not the ones emitting them. For example, I'll give an example of Pakistan, but India, despite being more industrialized, also doesn't emit a majority of global emissions. Pakistan houses almost 3% of the global population. That only accounts for 0.88 or 0.93 percent of global greenhouse gas emissions. India is similar, as is Afghanistan, as is Bangladesh, because we are not so industrialized and we're not so heavily technologically advanced. As we are not the ones who are proliferating this greenhouse gases as much, and we're not the ones who are emitting them so much, us pursuing measures in order to limit our emissions is not going to have as much an effect as us coming together and lobbying the West, as well as other more developed nations such as China, the European Union, and America, for example, to lower their own emissions as well. However, something we can do that will be just as effective would be to engage in carbon capturing maneuvers, carbon capturing technologies. For example, this is something that we can even do at the grassroots level. If we were to say start a movement for culturing algae, for example, that's been shown to be much more effective than even planting trees in terms of capturing, removing carbon dioxide and increasing and converting it into oxygen due to algae's high rate of photosynthesis. And so that's an example to try and help our reaching. So we're likely, if we're going to have any real effect physically, we're going to need to become net negative, and heavily so. So definitely, I'd say we need to come together and lobby other countries which have higher emissions and other nations, regions entirely, to come together and essentially lower their own emissions and engage in net zero as well. For example, just about every major country in the world right now has a ministry for environment or a ministry of net zero. And so I believe that's important, as well as addressing the threats. We don't just have threats from floods and landslides, droughts. We do need to, there's quite a big water issue and a risk we may have a water shortage in the near future. But there's also existential threats. For example, the plastic that's been circulated in the oceans. The average person has about as much plastic in their brain as a plastic spoon does that you would get at a restaurant, which is quite worrying. And there's also the existential threat of glacial melt, which may also keep in mind glaciers are time capsules. So some of the microorganisms within glaciers are millions of years old. So it's theoretically possible any one of those could start a global pandemic, for example. There are many existential threats we face as a result of climate change, and the only way we will be able to have any meaningful impact is if we were to come together and lobby other countries collectively. We wouldn't even have to. Yeah.
So I'm sorry, but I mean, because I am also keeping a watch and I don't want to go over time, and we are already very close to that mark. So I would really love to hear on this, the kind of solutions that the world is giving us, that everybody should cut emissions. And what about the countries who barely have any? And they also need to have some development imperatives, whereas the countries which are emitting a lot, and I mean, right now I think everybody is waiting for the 4-year period to get over in the US, for them to maybe realize again that they are part of this shared world. And unless and until they bear their own load, whatever the other countries like ours do, it will not have an effect. And I'm not, I mean, I know the benefits of carbon credits, etc., but I somehow, it doesn't rest easy on the conscience, because we are going to do carbon trading so the emitters can keep emitting, and we are supposed to grow plants and algae to save the world. So that's a very strange kind of a mix. It's there's a sort of a moral dilemma over there. So I would like to hear your take on this, Manchi, because you have made some very strong points. That there are policymakers are on another track, and the actual problems are something else, and there seems to be there no connectors there.
Yeah, I think, I'll take it from here, that, the climate crisis did not begin, let's say, in the Himalaya or in South Asia, or, we have, or in the global South. I mean, we have behind us a history of colonialism that extracted wealth, land, and labor historically. And now we face the unequal consequences of this, cycle that was set in motion. And even the IPCC report, actually, I think it was in 2021, which acknowledged that the roots of the current crisis lie in the plunder and the inequality that was set in motion by colonialism and by modern industrialism. Of course, it is something where, there are some things that we cannot go backward, especially as far as industrialism is concerned. But there are a lot of conversations happening around the world about that are questioning the economic growth model, the neoliberal economic growth model. I also agree with what has been said by others, that the inequalities are not just at the global level; they are at the country level. The same inequalities of race, ethnicity, class, caste, gender. It determines who is profiting and who suffers and who bears the costs. So it's at different levels that you see the structural inequalities, and then who has a higher footprint and who is a decision maker. Like, we use the word man-made. We generally avoid man-made, but for disasters we say man-made, because we want to put into place that there is patriarchy operating along with the economic systems that we are talking about, where the men are mostly in the decision making positions, or who owns the resources are in the decision making position. And then, as far as the cops are concerned, I mean, I feel it is important not to have complete blind faith in this process, because it becomes a cop out, generally. And, the solutions being shaped by those who are refusing accountability. This is a bit ironic. Also, that the fossil fuel lobby is really dominating the process at the moment. I'm also very, very skeptical about, like, even the person who talked about planting 1 trillion trees. He himself made a statement in the last COP, was it, or the one before that, that, this is not climate action, and that he was on the wrong path. I think that mega solar, mega wind parks that dispossess local communities, pastoralists from their grazing lands, this is not climate action. Carbon trading that goes with this logic that you can continue polluting in one place by kind of making up, offsetting it in another place, is again, I feel, needs to be questioned as climate action. I mean, I think we must name greenwashing for what it is: a continuation of a colonial pattern of extraction, or green extractivism also, as they call it. So I think that this is important. And on the other hand, I think, I mean, yes, even this conversation about South Asian solidarity, like I think the Himalayan countries at Baku did come together to discuss, the shared airspaces and airsheds and atmospheric governance. And it's important that, this common airshed is being recognized, but we also have to realize that the region has become geopolitically fraught, that, land and rivers are tools of territorial power also. So rather than shared lifelines, which should be governed by ecological ethics primarily. So I think that these things, so there are some conversations that are very difficult. And so how, I think history shows us that a lot of transformation, social transformation, comes from below. New ideas and new solidarities, are also, very place based. So I think we need to break, what we need to break is the knowledge hierarchy that exists as far as the climate discourse is concerned, because people from all walks of life need to join in. It's not just the experts, scientists, governments, but actually ordinary people, farmers, pastoralists, indigenous people, women, youth, fisherfolk, riparian communities across, need to be part of this dialogue. And I think any action that work even at a very local level, that works towards peace and democracy, we can consider that as climate action. Any action that values the more than human world, is any action that is against exclusion and otherization, can also be part of climate action. I mean, it will be it'll be a stepping stone, if nothing else. So I think we need to kind of, look for hope in these kind of smaller initiatives. Otherwise, it can be very daunting, because it is a global issue, and there are, many kind of multi-scalar historical things that are going on. So it can be very daunting, which is why I think it's very important to, look at, collective care from below and cooperation from below.
Thank you. And this is like, so whatever little success we are seeing and the pushback that is coming from collectives from the ground. There are communities, there are indigenous communities in South America which are coming together. There are these island nations which all have a different agenda as far as national agenda, yet they are all there collectively because they see it as an existential threat. So voices from the ground do matter, and they need to, maybe gain in decibels to be able to push those people who sit at the negotiating table. And personally, because I do, I train journalists, the communication field, which your organization is in climate change communication hub in Sri Lanka, Santa, and also teachers, etc. So I also feel that we can't just stop talking about it, and we can't just get frustrated, because this is for the long haul. And I actually quote the example of Bangladesh as a model of having done that, because a lot of climate action has actually translated into uh, policy action over there. And we have seen Bangladesh become climate proof by the by South Asian standards. They have done a lot better than many of our other countries. And so how do you explain that, Barish? I mean, we would like to follow those steps that Bangladesh took, but I see a lot of activism there, and I see a lot of action there, and I see a lot of policy interventions. So the things over there have come together at a much higher level and much quicker. Over in the other countries, we see them coming together, but the pace is so slow that we feel, that it will never catch up. So, Barish, if you would like to see or tell us about the success story that at least I quote Bangladesh
Yeah.
as.
No, I think, I think the thing is that successive governments, despite the sort of polarization in their domestic policies and politics, have agreed on certain things. And I think that's always been the prerequisite to any of the success stories that we've ever had in this country. I think a good example of this can be family planning. From the 70s, late 70s onwards, I think every single government has felt this is an important thing to be able to control the population, increasing the control of the number of the population, right? And that's the reason it became successful. And similarly, I think despite what we will say about nature of the governments that have been in the past 20, 30 years, whatever, I think they've all understood that climate change is an existential threat to this country. It's projected that if sea level rise of 2 to 3 meters will result in 16 coastal districts being partially or completely submerged. This is an existential threat for us. In a country of 180 million people, displacement is already a huge issue for us. And this is going to get worse the more climate change continues. And I think that what Manshi and you were also talking about, this is not possible for us to deal with this problem by ourselves. Because we contribute, our number of emissions is not high. The per capita emission is extremely low, which is it's rising with development, but it's still very low, right? But what is sort of in our remit, if you will, is to build resilience, is to take action on adaptation, is to prepare people to be able to handle the changes that is coming with the climate crisis. And I think the government has invested quite a lot into that, and not just the government, but also Bangladesh has previously been called the NGO laboratory. I think there's been so many NGOs and civil society organizations that have worked on climate change, that have worked at that very grassroots level all the way up to the policy making level. And one of the things that I will say is that in the last sort of 10, 15 years, where in Bangladesh it became more and more difficult to talk about human rights in this country, to talk especially about civil and political rights, environmental rights was seen more favorably because the Bangladesh government had positioned itself as this climate champion in the world. You couldn't then punish people who were talking about protecting their environmental rights or protecting or demanding climate justice. So, and the last thing that I will say, and this is, there is an extremely strong youth movement in this country. There are, and it's maybe inspired through a global sort of solidarity network of the youth movement, especially to do with climate change, people like Greta Thunberg and stuff. And that has really seeped into the youth here, from all over the country, whether it's urban areas, whether it's the frontline areas, etc. The youth movement is extremely strong. They originally sort of campaigned for a seat at the table. That was their main agenda, inclusion. But I've seen myself, and from talking to them and trying to advise where I can, that they are now becoming much more also politically minded. It's not just about inclusion anymore. The older they get, they realize that it doesn't end with just having a seat at the table, but also being able to talk at that table. And they have, different ideas, different ways of how they want things to progress, and they are demanding that those voices are heard. And it's not on us to tell them what to think. All we can do is support their voices. So I think altogether that kind of creates an ecosystem where climate change is and has been quite a central topic, which has led to a lot of coordinated action. But even then, I think what we've talked about before about unsustainable development, if you will, threatens to undermine a lot of the climate action that has been accomplished.
Thank you. So, this is the important thing that we need to focus on, and I've alluded to this even before, because of the presence of, the youth cohort here, that this entire region has a population, a young population, a young connected population. I mean, even Pakistan, over 60% are under the age of 30 years, and that's number likely to go up. So the resonance of it's, I know that it has gone to the level of anxiety amongst the youth as well, but maybe right now that anxiety is at a level, well, it will lead to climate action, not to the level of total despair and just giving up, which we are seeing in some places. So I really wish we could take this conversation forward, because this is, I think, just a beginning of a conversation. We cannot capture this entire topic in a short webinar. But what I would like to connect it to is that even the webinar we had on the eve of, I think it was COP29. No, it was COP26. We had the youth, two representatives of youth, one from Pakistan and one from India, who read out our resolution, and it was read out at the COP. They took it to the COP. And this is what we are looking for even this year from this forum. And we were thinking that if we don't find somebody who can physically present it over there, we can at least start a petition on maybe change.org. And if everybody can sign on to this, and then we can push it according, along in our own circles, maybe it can gain some traction, and we can meanwhile find somebody who will take it on and read that during their presentations over there, that this is what the youth of South Asia feels about the future. And you have to listen to them. You have to also give them a voice. You're very right. Just being at the table isn't enough, but being able to talk at the table and being listened to at the table is something that now, the time for that has come. It should have been day before yesterday. But even now, if we, put our strength behind the youth who's taking this movement forward, so we will share that petition with everybody in a couple of days, and I think we can take it forward from there. I would, sorry to say goodbye, but thank you so much to my wonderful panelists, Sher, Manshi, Manita, Barish, Asanta. I mean, this has been a very good beginning of a very important conversation, and I hope we can, stir something up and take it forward at another level. Hope to stay connected to all of you, and it's back to you, Bidhi. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Afia. Thank you for this very stimulating discussion. This is something Sapan would like to facilitate taking forward for widespread impact in the region. I would like to request all the panelists and volunteers to turn on their video so we can take a virtual group photo.
Excellent sessions. Thank you, Afia, and thank you, panelists.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank
I
you,
was
ma'am.
looking at the comments.
I think we are all echoing that. Absolutely super. I have one
Thank
suggestion. What do we do to take this forward? It shouldn't just end, where we are tonight. That's the critical
Lolly, we're going to
question.
right now. Sorry.
Yeah.
We're
Okay.
I think Afia's we're going to send out a petition, and somebody, Pragya, are you taking the picture, or whoever's around? Just we're just going to take a screenshot of everybody who we can see, and
I
just
think
take a
they'll be
picture.
on two pages. I think we are there on
no, it's
two.
the non-video participants are being hidden. We just do it for this fun. Whoever's there, I'm just taking it right now, a screenshot, and then Vidhi can wrap up and end the thing. All right, everybody, smile.
Okay.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, Vidhi, over to you.
Thank you, Veena. Before we close, a request to everybody to please contribute using the link in the chat to make a tax-deductible donation. Someone on our team will put up the link in the chat box again. Thank you so much. A huge thanks to everyone who made this event possible and to all of you watching. Behind those you saw on the screen today were many dedicated volunteers without whom this event wouldn't have been possible. So special thank you to Beena Sarwar, Lalita Ramdas, Kavita Srivastava, Khawar Mumtaz, Khushi Kabir, and Sarita Barthola for conceptualizing this discussion. Heartfelt thanks also to Sapan members Arya Gautam, Pragyan Srivastava, Ranjini Rao, and Sara Arshad for volunteering behind the scenes and helping make this event a great success. Finally, special thanks to all our panelists, Afia Salam, Asanta Kalyananda, Barish Chaudhary, Manshi Asher, Manita Murmu, Sher Abbas, for sharing their time, insights, and passion. Thank you, everybody, and we look forward to seeing you next time.